And there was no light on me at all. All right, I gotta get some better light. Let's get some better light. All right. Okay, I wasn't, because of technology, I am able to teach this class somewhat on a reasonable time, as opposed to really getting late to the school. Probably would have missed like 2 of the 3 hours, so that wouldn't have worked. Anybody out there, you know, when people have my number, use text message. You know what I mean? I don't have time for like mad long conversations. You know what I mean? I really don't. All right, let me open up my notes. I had a good question from the God. Knowledge, Allah, peace. Universal VI. Right? V-double-I. Interesting. I think I've seen you before in here. Correct me if I'm wrong. All right, anything that people want to know or anything like that, you can start off with that. Anybody that's new that would like to know anything, what this knowledge of self is. Hey, peace, Supreme Scientist. Oh, you know what? Roman numerals have always been a nemesis, right? I'm not even reading it that way. I never read Roman numerals as Roman numerals. I want to outlaw them. So mad they won't get rid of that with the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So much easier, right? Okay, this is the wizard. Any tips on how to tackle the longer degrees? Well, you know, here's just, you know, because asking me now, in general, you have to do things that challenge your memory. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes the degrees are difficult because we don't really challenge our mind to remember things or challenge ourselves to, you know, to really learn, you know, new things. We have this idea that I forgot where I read this because this was I didn't, you know, it's like it's not even worthwhile to bear witness to it without any science or anything. You know what I mean? But like, people are so good with so-called scientific studies that are about limitation. And I was reading, I forget where it was, and obviously I forgot purposely, of how the mind can only absorb a certain amount of information. I think it was in one of the books I was reading and vastly disagreed with. And So it's like treating the mind like it's some kind of cup. And then when you would overload it, that's just what it is. If you have that mentality, most of us have that kind of mentality when we learn things that are difficult, and we take it to us when we deal with 120. The truth is that there has to be a fearlessness that you won't forget, or that you won't be able to not use it, and that if you do forget, it's okay. Then you just work harder to learn it again. And that's a training method. You know what I'm saying? That's a training method. You know what I'm saying? All things have to be trained to get greater, but they also have to be trained to maintain themselves. So we have to be very comfortable in this idea that just to maintain a level of excellence, we would have to train heavily. So by the same way, you know what I mean? So sometimes with the longer degrees, what you want to do is not just, focus on a sentence, focus on some statistics that go with them, basic stuff. Like sometimes I'll try to remember how many sentences, how many sentences are in the degree. That's what I mean by statistics, right? How many words in the degree, right? How many different things are being spoken about? You know what I mean? How many references are made to what? Sometimes analyzing these degrees and breaking them down, then they seem like this long, larger, absolute run-on sentence, right? Or filled with run-on sentences is going to make some kind of sense, And the more you make sense out of it, and you can make sense out of things even if you don't have all of the understanding, because you're usually memorizing them without the understanding. So you don't know the degree, you're going to get the understanding of it, but you have to memorize it first, right? As you're caught up in a situation, you try to develop some type of statistic, some type of information that'll allow you to understand it better. You know what I mean? And then it'll work out more for you. If they're just barren information that is illogical, and you're having a tough time with it because you can't even do that, then spend some time developing questions of what you don't know about the degrees. That'll also help you memorize them better. You know what I mean? Also, too, another thing, if you want to memorize degrees that are very difficult, because sometimes people ruin the degrees, and a lot of times it's not their lack of ability to memorize, it's because they're messing up the particularities of the grammar, right? Now, this is Elijah Muhammad's grammar. This isn't anybody else's grammar. So what you want to do is spend some time reading Elijah's books, get his flow, get his nature. That's why Message to the Black Man, though, is kind of a arduous task to read the whole thing. Most people, honestly, let's keep it real. Unless it was some kind of fun novel or some kind of, entertaining piece, most people haven't really read any book that's over 300 pages, really. You know what I mean? And if you can get through Message to the Black Man, then you get a sense of the grammar, the technicalities that he uses, the deficiencies and the consistency. Because what you want to do is you want to understand not that he has bad grammar, but that he's actually made it useful. So there's a consistency in it. Once you get those consistencies, it'll help with degrees, especially like the 28th degree and things like that. You know what I mean? All right. It's a good question, though. So, and of course, though, you're battling short-term memory with long-term memory, right? Your short-term memory is what's failing you because it makes you think that you know this stuff. You know what I'm saying? And then you spend some time without it. And then you test your long-term memory to see if it's still there. And of course, it's not there. That's the work. That's the work. Instead of seeing it as like, oh, I can't do this, I need a new trick or a new method, which I'm giving you new methods. What's also important is to have the mentality that your muscles are not strong enough. You know what I mean? There, when we train and stuff, you're lifting weights, so there are weights that you can't lift, right? But then there are certain weights that you should be able to lift. So then you got to look at the reasons why you don't lift them. What are you eating recently? The diet, all of those kind of things. So then what you say is, listen, I have got to lift this, or I've got to make this. You know what I mean? And the same thing is when you're studying, though, you have to have an athlete's mind. When you're studying, you have to see the mind as and the tool of you, the athlete. You know what I mean? All right. All right. Give me a moment. My little girl is calling me, so I'll be back and I answer the question that you text me, Kamal. All right. Hey, I'm actually teaching my class right now. I'm online. You okay? What do you want to know? How you feeling? Okay. That's it. Okay. Hey, remember that if you do go to school or not, you gotta let me know, okay? So I know where to pick you up. Okay? So you can let me know. Okay. That's why you gotta let me know tomorrow, wherever you are. Alright? Okay. So I'm gonna let you go, okay? Let me go back to my class. Okay? Love you. All right, I'm back. Yes, indeed. Everything is real, right? Yeah. Knowledge Allah, you said something. I have tried to read Messages of the Black Man. I was better with How to Eat to Live. This is what I mean by the athlete's work. Messages of the Black Man becomes a boring book, okay? Because the amount of repetition increases, and then the amount of useful jewels, because the repetition is so immense, lessens. You know what I mean? So there's less jewels per page as you go along because there's so much repetition. Whereas How to Eat to Live are short books and have lots of information, whether right, outdated, or really most of it, a lot of it is outdated, but it has a lot of information, a lot of proposals, a lot of ideas, and a lot of useful stuff too that's still useful. Mainly this idea of the way you eat, you know what I mean? The comfort, the stress-free levels of how you eat, that impacted me a lot. That's probably the best part of the book. And other stuff is just throw away, though. I don't want you eating navy beans all day, okay? That's just bean pie propaganda. But because of the style of the book, right? And remember, all of these are mainly collections of his speeches. So because they're looking for particularities that go with diet, it's easier to pick it out and because the content is so specific, extracting it from the speech, you basically are becoming an editor who's putting that together. Whereas Messages of the Black Man, they're taking whole speeches that are about the general ideas that he has always taught, so they could have more of the speech in it, which could be very repetitive as you go along reading it. He wasn't sitting down penning these books, But again, in order to read better, in other words, you get more out of the read, you can then read more books. You have to get into the habit of reading through books that are useful, that are useful, and actually get through them. Okay. So consider it the part of the training you don't like, so if you like bench press, but you hate squats, then you can't just skip the squats, you know what I mean? Because then you won't really get, everything else will suffer anyway, right? So that's important. If they have, effective way to teach someone 120, if they have trouble retaining everything due to age. Obviously, the first thing I'm saying is like, why teach someone of that age, right? That's the first thing we would say, because we're teaching the youth. And if that's the case, and you're still teaching them, and I'm assuming now because of their age is they're an adult. If they're young, though, it's okay, because youth are, they don't always have the same concentration levels. Then you can pick particular degrees that they could memorize, particular ideas, right? It's all how you engage them. So I don't know what age group. When you say due to age, it could be age up or down. So there's two different answers. You know what I mean? If they're younger, though, you have to make it more relevant, more useful, and that always entails finding out more about the student. A lot of times people teach, they don't know anything about the student. You might assume that the likes and dislikes that you have together give you enough information. If they're between those ages, though, then it doesn't matter. You don't have to do anything, because it's on them. You know what I mean? You present it, and then they do it or they fail. At that age, from 40 on or whatever, it's really their responsibility. It's really their responsibility. And at some point, the aid that you give is literally like driving a bumper car, you know what I mean? At the ride, There's no real benefit to it, though. It really doesn't add on, Some people really aren't exposed to it or have the opportunity until those ages. But every single age has a specific responsibility, right? So at that age, though, they would have the responsibility to go do it themselves, you know what I mean? Because there's enough lessons that are already taught, right? Yeah. And also, too, short-term and long-term memory, practice it with the books you read that have useful information. If you're, if you're tagging pages, or in your books, if they're on your phone and you have them digital and you can write your own notes, then what you ought to be doing, though, is also writing about the books that you're reading. This is something I've been doing since 1998. Okay, so it allows me to. I've been able to retain a lot of information because of that. You know what I mean? And it constantly happens where books I've read maybe 1 or 2 years ago, when I write about them, then it's where I get the real foundation in the memory banks, So it's important, because what happens is that you don't have to do this, but I like to write whole passages of the book, because I started to do this because I couldn't keep these books from the library and whatnot, right? The benefit to still doing that for me is that I get to actually, it helps as a memorization process to remember a lot of the key points. And then, of course, in your journals, you're going to write commentary and ideas. So it becomes something that you worked with and came up with ideas based off of it. This is important, and a lot of people don't. This is what it means to actually study without some type of test, and some of that too is the way we've been taught. So if they're from age 40 and on, sometimes the way people are working when they're older is a lot like the old testing methods, So they're looking at 120 like a test and stuff, And the truth is that if you're 40 and up and learning this, or you're older, you're not getting this to memorize something. You're not memorizing something to get this or anything else. There has to be more sincerity in what you're doing. You're getting this to share it with someone, or to create things that will inspire others to come learn it, preferably the young. And I'm sorry, but like if you're 30 plus and your goal is just to have it for yourself, then that really makes you a worthless student. Okay. And a lot of people don't see themselves going out there and teach somebody, or that they see that the best way, which is very a lesser way, is that they might be able to go to Facebook or something, or social media, and start teaching things, to acquire, or to people that really don't care, because it's a cipher that pretty much has accepted you and to hear your mess. You know what I mean? So it could be constricting, for the average person that isn't making creations or art and stuff like that, and build a bigger base than just his immediate surroundings of family and the like. How someone that's older that gets this develops a mentality of what could he create? Well, then that sounds hard, but these teachings were for the youth. So if it sounds hard to you, then you have to start getting in touch with what could be the youthful reality for me. Because if learning something for yourself and using it for yourself, and then trying to figure out how could I create something that could end up as some type of teaching tool or show the reality of myself as the true and living God. Well, now that question and that challenge alone to your mind is exactly what it is to be young. That's the challenge of being young. That is what being young is to daringly innovate the truth that you learn and that you have challenged and tested to be right, to now create a new way of communicating and sharing and devise new creations. So if you can't do that, if you're not willing to take that challenge, that's the problem. That's the problem, Okay. Give it a try, Knowledge Allah. The truth is that it's not your ability to learn. If you can't read a certain type of book well, it's that there are obstacles. There's a lot of reasons though. Elijah's grammar can slow down people's reading of it. You know what I mean? And all types of things, but that's the practice. You know what I mean? That's the practice. You have to get in that gym and read it. You know what I mean? And Kareem, you had suggested theology time. Message the Black Man is boring. However, Message the Black Man is to me is a requirement though. You know what I mean? Everyone should have read it. Everyone should have read it or should be reading it though. There's no leeway with that. You know what I'm saying? There's no leeway with that. You read Theology of Time, you read How to Eat to Live. Those are other Raekwon albums though. You gotta listen to Cuban Links. You know what I mean? Yeah, his sentences are very choppy. You know what I mean? But again, though, you're mastering a cadence of someone else. Like the more that you study of Elijah, listening to him and things like that, you have to understand his cadence, because then you're going to understand the nature of how he was teaching, and his intentions. It's real important. It's going to give you insights to what is deliberate grammar, what are his intentions. Because now, if someone's grammar is wrong, right, then you need to know the framework of what they're saying, right? Technically, the same goes true for all types of literature art, including hip hop. Because if you don't know enough about the artist, then you don't know how they are changing the grammar to make a specific type of message. You're just hearing a lot of gibberish mixed into things, right? And that's not good. So there's education with all that. All right. I hope that answers the question. Yeah. But the most glaring thing I would say, though, is that when we talk about the age group, is really the goals of that age group. Because a 40 to 50, 40 plus person should be absolutely inspired. They don't deserve the motivation. You know what I'm saying? They don't deserve to be motivated. You know, they might be motivated by what we do, but they don't deserve special motivation. They don't deserve to be coddled. You know what I mean? At all. Even if they're new to it, even if they never heard it in their life, right? Okay. There was a question the God had sent me. God Kamal had asked me a question about the universal flag. Is it only reserved for gods who knowledge 120? I always thought so because that's how I earned mine. But I met many gods throughout the years rock theirs without fully knowledging 120, but could build on the flag. I was taught that it was a no-no. I've seen some get checked. What's my take on it? The take I have is just a reality take, you know what I mean? Along with my own preference. The reality of it is that people will wear the flag, though, whether you like it or not. The father used to give out flags to people that weren't in the nation, that he thought were righteous enough or well-meaning enough in intention, as 5% minded in that. However, right, the pin flag ought to be earned. Any other flag ought to be worn only if the person really knows. You know what I'm saying? And the truth is that they don't know. And if you're wearing a flag and you don't have a real ability to teach a new student or a person that comes to you asking questions, then you've already answered, whether you should wear it or not. And that's why it probably gets taken. Not because they can't wear a flag if they haven't knowledge 120, but they don't know how to represent it. Right, well, yeah, I mean, Jay-Z or Jay Electronica, those are people that were misrepresenting it, you know what I mean? And no matter what anybody says about how the hype or it led to people getting students, everybody that says that, they weren't. How many people did you encounter? You know what I'm saying? People always say that. I'm going to tell you something about, like, people, though, that have this knowledge, though, that say that they're 5%ers and stuff. A lot of their analysis is very anecdotal. You know what I'm saying? A lot of their analysis is very anecdotal. They'll get, like, ever since Jay-Z said that, I've gotten many students. And when you look, though, they taught two people that were already Jay-Z fans in the corner that they're always on, and they're a Jay-Z fan themselves. It's totally anecdotal. It's not really, reality and stuff, And I can say that because in my years, I've been teaching somewhere where the whole world goes to. You know what I mean? And I don't really bear witness to too many people's personal realities in one hood, that travel very little, encountered not very many youth, and then they say somebody is influencing, grandly, right? Mello would be a different situation, because I know where he's getting it from, his roots, and he's represented it honorably. You know what I mean? I'm sure, like any, a lot of people, they may or may not get everything right if we sat him down and started to inquire about everything. But from his vantage point of what he's been presenting, it's a totally different situation than Jay Electronica. Jay Electronica teaches about a mystery god and spaceships. You know what I mean? And Jay-Z, he's a flip-flopper. You know what I mean? He's a pop MC. You know what I mean? Uses his gifts to merge the gifts of others, and that will include, though, the intellectual property of others, and that would include our flag at the time that he was using it. you know, useful intellectual property to make to expand his markets. You know what? And with a lot of 5%ers, or so-called 5%ers, it worked though. You know, they went gaga. You know what I mean? Right? Okay. I see you, Knowledge Allah. You said I culture God, so I am inspired and also very motivated to finish my degrees. Right? You've got to be. You've got to be, and you've got to motivate yourself. You know, and for anyone that I'm teaching directly, you know, a lot of you know, come in a chat and everything. But if I'm teaching you directly and you're that age, you should have goals of who you intend to share with and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? What you intend to do, you know, and develop those as you go along. If they're not there now, then develop them, you know, right? You know, develop them. What can you do? What will you do? How will this enhance how you create things? You know what I mean? It's really key. Yeah, the mothership stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know, there's a lot of people I know, and they deal with the knowledge, and they're 5%. But you're in error if you're saying that there's a mothership. If you're talking about I build and the things and the universe answers me, I don't know who the fuck you're talking about. You know what I mean? Who's the universe? You know what I mean? It's like that was that kids movie when in the 80s, so you know, the Starship, where a kid was in the ship and it was a living ship, you know? That's the universe, you know what I mean? The mothership is one of those things, you know what I mean? That's ridiculous. How about the 10 mil given to the dog's children, equality or clout? Who's the dog's children? I don't know who the dog's children is. Download consciousness from the universe. Yeah, you know, people just, you know, a lot of times it's just that people have to be a little bit more cognizant in sayings that they say that they got used to, right? It's one of the reasons why I say remembered imperfection and why I created that, because we were honoring people and assuming what they do. Like, why did I don't bear witness to when people say rest in peace or sleep in peace. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know what that energy has become and or anything like that. So I don't know why you're saying that their mind is resting or sleeping. Those are our conventions and physicality, you know. And why is it that they're all of a sudden weak? And by the way, that was rumor, though. There's no proof of that, what he did. That's just a meme, you know, about what Jay-Z did for DMX's children. It's a meme, you know, right? Right. Universe, good question, Kasim, aka Out the Gates TV. Universe, the universe is what we create. You know what I'm saying? And what I mean, though, is like when people say the universe answers, give that, it's interactive because we are creating in our own creation. You know what I mean? But it's not an individual that decides things. You know what I mean? And the way people talk, it's almost like the universe has a decision-making process. Like, I didn't like the way you acted. You know what it's really like? The universe is more like punching yourself. You know what I mean? It's not talking back to you. That's your reality that you shaped. So it's not a separate thing talking to you. You know, it's not a separate thing reacting to you or gifting you. And that kind of language only confuses. And you know, I get it if it's people that don't have the knowledge or haven't really thought about this concept. But one of the things about being a 5% is that you want to be consistent with the language you have, because we are proposing new language, the profound and correct definition of what God is, of what Allah is, you know, and then we're just going to sloppily say everything else, you know. So language is important, you know. And again, though, look, the older the student, the more consistent they are, though, with a mysterious language, you know. I find that also another thing is that when people build and they build about about our people, about history and all of these things, they want to include everybody into this umbrella. You know what I mean? And the truth is, being a 5% of those stuff that's not included. You know what I mean? You're gonna be alone in a lot of things. You gotta get used to it. There's no way around that either. Let me open up some of my books here. I hope that answered the question about the flag, you know? All right. You said right, but the universe corresponds to our mind, right? It corresponds to our mind because it is our mind. We created it, though. So it only is what we have created, you know? So it's always going to correspond with our mind. That's why I said, like, sometimes it doesn't always make sense. Like, okay, look, let me explain it this way, right? The universe is what we create, right? So when someone goes, I want to be in tune with the universe, though, then they said something inherently wrong because you created all this. So when you screw up, what you created is going to flounder around you. So the universe is not talking back to you. No, it's you that's creating this. Right? So that means that being in tune with the universe is going to happen whether you are doing righteous or you're doing wrong, because it will be affected. So being in tune with the universe, though, is an irrelevant concept. You know what I mean? It's really irrelevant. Right? 793rd, that's that talk from, what's that app? They go to show their conscious ways and his, I don't even know. Right. We could take, you know, and that's part of what being a 5%er is, though, is to think about these things in a little bit more profound way, you know what I mean? And take the complexities of all this and simplify it a little bit. Self I build, you said the way in which I articulate and carry wisdom myself in a direct relation to how I view myself, cipher. Therefore, I make every effort for the truth of who I am to be evident, born through the, oh, wait for the end of that. Okay. All right, let's read that all over again. The way in which I articulate and carry wisdom myself is in direct relation to how I view myself, cipher. Okay, therefore I make every effort for the truth of who I am to be evident, born through the consistency of my conduct, wisdom, and character, which is done irregardless. There's no such word as irregardless. That's incorrect grammar. It's just regardless, right? It's just done regardless of the detractors and naysayers. It's always regardless, okay? Because there's no instance where regardless is correct and irregardless would be needed. You know, like it's like writing this twice. You know what I mean? It's like writing quotes twice on something, right? No such word as irregardless stuff, okay? When 5%ers take out irregardless from their language, then you'll sound like 1,000 points more intellectual, trust me. And spell the word lose like this. Lose, right? Lose the game, right? The belt is loose, okay? And we're talking about, I'm mentioning that because that's a common error consistent through Elijah Muhammad's writing. Okay. Right, Kasim. You and the universe. By the way, that was a good build. Most people don't build on wisdom cipher as some type of activity. You know what I mean? They as an active state. You know, so I like that build a lot. You know, I definitely like that build a lot. Richie Spice is the best reggae artist. Okay, there's propaganda for a moment. All right. You mean best reggae artist of all time, like forever and ever, in a world that had Bob Marley? I'm just saying. I find that hard to wrap my head around. that's the thing, right? When we're dealing with 120 for other people, other languages, and for people in other countries, you have to look at it like the Dhammapada. The Dhammapada doesn't get translated differently because it goes to America or anywhere else, though. You know what I mean? Um, well, right. So when we talk about 120, it's about preserving the messages that were in 120 in the translation or in the presentation, and then it's applying it to yourself. So everyone would have a unique understanding that we based off the knowledge and be just and true, but it'd be the same way, right? The history wouldn't change because it's the vantage point of this particular history. The history of the original people isn't changing. It's just added on and focused on because let's say the history of Latin America, the history of Asia, Asians, everywhere, Chinese, Japanese, everywhere. The way they would study 120 and then go back and find the relevance. The truth is that in your deeper studies, you would have to find those histories as also. So while the so-called African American history for the person that's of that descent is learning 120, their immediate history is relevant to 120. Those that are studying, right, will have to do both. They'll have to get the African American history and then study, so let's say, their Puerto Rican history. And of course, there's lots of overlap because that's a very large part of American history. But let's say another country, right? But the truth is that that African American that just got knowledge herself and learned his history because it was completely relevant to knowing 120, and in the history of 120, it's part of the history. To truly know this knowledge as well, he's going to have to learn the history of other nations as well, because he has to learn about all the original people and about all history. You know what I'm saying? It's not. It's almost like it's sometimes expected. Like only Fard was the only person that was a polymath. You know, you may fail as a polymath, but the work of being yourself, the true and living God, is the work of a polymath. Many disciplines, many fields of knowledge learned, and even if you have, if you have and should have specific specifications, you know, specific things that you learn about, there should be a broad-based knowledge that is very useful to you. You know what I mean? So let's say, right, we'll have to know Jamaican history, right, and we should know, right. And then we should be able to argue and say something like, well, reggae, how we judge what is the best. In many aspects, though, probably Bob Marley might falter, right? He wasn't as beautiful a singer as for example, Bunny Wailer, who returned recently, right? Um, but he had a certain magnetic inequality, though, a lot like Tupac, where they are much greater than the sum of their technical parts. You know what I mean? Musically, let's say, for example, Burning Spear and others had more of a gritty music, and his had rock elements which were a little bit more popped out and lend themselves to appeal. You know what I mean? But if we were to say the best, though, because of Bob Marley's impact and the amount of seminal songs that he has, that are classics, whether you judge him technically or via popularity or via influence, right? It's really, it's really hard to even dare to make a statement that some other artist is greater as a definitive statement. It would just be your favorite, or, you know. And if you say he's the best, what would be the reasoning? You know, because out of all the genres I've ever studied, though, nothing is as clear cut a dominating peak as Bob Marley in any genre. You know what I mean? You know, Bob Marley's peak, he was overshadowing some of the greatest artists of different genres, whether they be funk and, Sly and the Family Stone and things like that. And, he was intruding on their dates and stuff. And that was well documented how they were Sly was frustrated, right? So that's important, though. You know what I mean? And see, the difference between that makes Bob harder to, you know, unrank as the best is unlike hip hop, where lyrical technicalities or lyrical, you know, massive lyrical dexterity or complex wordplay is demanded, and a lot of that is demanded because really the peak was hit with KRS and Rakim and Tupac, and mostly everyone else too don't match that. But no one matches Tupac's peaks to the people like Tupac, which is very Bob Marley-esque. The only difference is that Bob Marley, as a reggae artist, he doesn't need, that is not a qualifier, the intense lyrical abilities like we would in MC. So it really doesn't, you know what I mean? Right? Yeah, but see, he Kareem said Bob was great for his word, is not and not his voice, right? And yet, I think I think you're underplaying his voice, you know, because even still, name a song he has that was sung better. You know what I'm saying? People still can't sing his own songs better than he did. You know, there's very few songs that he has sang that sound better than his. Right? So, and that's very possible, by the way, where a lesser talented voice still sings the song the best because they make it a signature, right? Just one song I'll give you is "It's a Man's World," right? James Brown, right? Definitely not a golden voice, you know what I mean? But who in history has sang that song better than him, right? It's a good point, Kamal. Tupac wasn't lyrical, but he knew how to tap into human frailty of humans from all walks of life. Yeah, you know. That's why when I write about him, I compare him a lot to Langston Hughes. You know what I mean? Langston Hughes wasn't a deep lyric poet, but he was able to write in the voices. That's why he represented Harlem so well and represented, you know, African Americans, you know, and I'm being specific, broad-based, because he was able to write in so many voices, you know. Tupac had that gift too, you know what I mean? All right, you got lines like "Baby mama got a mind full of silly head games," and you're like, yeah, and you're like, Tupac didn't have any kids, you know. Simplicity is pony saying popular proverbs of the people resonate with illiterate and illiterate of the people. Yeah, you know, when you're singing song, that balance is very vital. You know what I mean? Very vital. You know, it's something that people don't want to admit that Nas does very well. You know what I'm saying? For the amount of high level content he gives you, he actually gives it to you simpler than a lot of other people. You know what I mean? That are on his level skill wise. You know, like a Pharaoh or a Jizza. You know what I mean? Certainly, when Riz is at his deepest, they're far more complex than Nas, and it's on the same issues. You know what I mean? Right? That's the gift of songwriting. You know what I mean? Songwriting is a real gift. You know what I mean? And some songwriters can't reach their full capabilities doing that, embracing the simplicity like that, you know, and we have to hear them complex, right? Whereas others, you know, like they just have it, you know what I mean? So you like the song, God, because it was the 7th song on the album? Okay. Come on, you said, I hate how Big is overrated and Pun isn't given enough credit when he was better. I think 2 things, right? I always say there's 2 things. The truth is that Biggie was first. Biggie was African American, so he was easier to market. And when I say easier to market, I'm making an understatement, because by that time, hip hop media, particularly, is already trying to make hip hop an African American genre and culture. Um, it is not embracing it as being defined as a black diasporic culture. So you have books by scholars like Imani Perry, right, who erroneously, literally say that it has no real significant Jamaican influence to say that it is anything other than an African American music. And these kind of things take hold, you know, and a lot of people don't know. I have covered this for a long time directly from the people. Fat Joe, uh, Pun's family, Terror Squad, directly. So when I say that it was massively difficult for Pun to actually be heard by other artists, including people that were on the Capital Punishment album, to really listen to him, like I Will Work With You, is no understatement either. It cannot be understated at all. So, um, that's a, it's funny because a lot of that came and I learned a lot of things building with UFO Feeve, who's part of Terror Squad, and these young, exceptional talent, and I actually not dug up, I found it. I did a search and I finally found it because I'd lost that magazine a long time ago. My review for Pun's Capital Punishment for Double XL. I'm the one that wrote that review, and it bugs me. I was gonna post it, but I gotta post it with like some commentary because they used to butcher my shit back up. So like you could tell what I wrote and what I didn't, pretty easily, especially people that have read my stuff, you know. They could tell what I wrote, even though it was like 1998, so over 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. The style I had was already in there, you know what I mean? But the truth is that Puerto Ricans, if they were blatantly looking Puerto Rican, meaning they can't pass for black, you know what I mean? As far as like African American and stuff, right? You're gonna know that there's some type of, the ethnicity that is not African American. Then you know, you're gonna have a problem, And they didn't want that. Mostly every MC that is Puerto Rican that you heard in the 90s had that problem. You know what I'm saying? Right? I've said this many times and I've written about it a long time, but it was only in my works. Fat Joe told me himself that he was pitched to be a freestyle singer, that they thought he should be a freestyle singer, like, like TKA and stuff. And I don't know how the hell who says shit? Who would pitch that? Wait, Kareem, you said RZA more complex than the GOAT? Come on, son. Wait, who's the GOAT? I don't know who you're saying is the GOAT. So, I don't know. I don't know who you're saying is the GOAT. So, right. All right, give me a minute. I gotta get something, and I want to get some water. So, you tell me who the GOAT is. I have no idea who you think is the GOAT. All right, I'm back. Who is the GOAT? All right, I have my water now. I had to find the bottle. Oh, Esco. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. RZA was definitely more lyrical. Everything RZA 97, everything RZA 97 is the peak of complexity. You know what I mean? As far as lyrical technicalities, Nas is really where it doesn't reach Nas levels. That Nas is a concept. His concepts are so incredible. But if we're talking about lyrical complexity, there's nothing beating what RZA was rapping on Wu-Tang Forever and on that second Gravediggers album. There's nothing, absolutely nothing. You know what I mean? I don't think that I don't think any MC has reached that. You know what I mean? And of course, though, we're not talking about, because in these peaks that I'm talking about with RZA, it's not really songwriting I'm talking about. It's just lyrical complexity I'm talking about. And that's also a benefit because RZA was sharing more knowledge. There was more knowledge that he was sharing, so it was harder, the information. You know what I mean? I did, and I just succeeded, though. There's no way you'd never win this one. You know what I'm saying? Because no MC has anything that's more complex than what RZA was doing in '97. As far as just technical lyrical concepts, and we're talking about like the difficulty of the idea, the rhymes, the difficulty, right? The layering, and just sheer complexity, and I'm talking to content based, I think RZA gets a lot of hell because he's really not he's not articulate. So even the genius of his dexterity and the things that he tried in his career, people don't really notice. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I think so too, Master, aka E Blending. I think Me Against the World is the if you bought one record, that would be it though. You bought one record. Yeah. You know why I don't say Machiavelli's his best record? It doesn't capture everything that he's about. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think it's as musically strong. It's not as musically strong. You know what I mean? And it would beat Machiavelli anyway, just because it has it has Dear Mama. You know what I mean? So let's say if we were saying that these are two classic albums, which I argue, I don't know if Machiavelli is a classic album. It's a seminal album, but I don't know if it's like, let's say, assume they're classic. Dear Mama's essential. That's an essential song. It's a special song. It's none like it. You know what I mean? And again, that's an example of that Bob Marley quality. You know what I mean? Kamal, you said Nas was like a narrator of life when I was growing up. I could truly visualize lyrics, so the elements outside my window in the hood as a teen. I wasn't even from New York. Yeah, definitely. I'm big on Nas. But what's interesting is that Jizza was just as profound. You know what I mean? I think Nas's peaks sometimes are exaggerated. Like he's the only one that reached that. If Nas is an absolute GOAT candidate, it's because of his consistency to reach those peaks. Not necessarily because he reached peaks that no one ever had. The truth is that as far as concepts, easily you could argue that KRS-One has more concepts. And examples. You know how Nas has like Rewind and what's the name of the song? The Gun. You know the on It Was Written. You know, KRS-One's career is filled with those kind of songs. You know what I mean? Concepts in that fashion. And he has more. He actually has more. You know, so. Yeah, I gave you power. I can't believe I'm saying gun. Jeez. Terrible. Rakim, yeah. You know, I think Rakim and KRS one of the absolute GOAT candidates. Nas to me is a GOAT candidate, definitely. But Rakim and KRS are always going to be at the top because they're pioneers in most of the lyricism that we see after. And you can't beat a pioneer that has classics. You know, we could argue about classic albums though, but probably KRS-One and Rakim have more, you know, than everybody else. And people are still catching up. So yeah, 7 8 good. Yeah. There are some really profound verses on Ghost Dog. Yeah, definitely. All right. Phase 114. That's peace. I appreciate you being here. All right. I'm here every Thursday, whether I'm at a law school or not, though I am continuously streaming. I just could not make it to the school in a timely fashion. So I took the opportunity. Usually what I would do in this before this technology enabled me, I would just go to the school very late. You know what I'm saying? And instead I could give people a decent class at a decent hour. You know what I mean? And be on with it, you know? Kareem, no, I'm not comparing RZA to Nas throughout their whole career. I'm talking about RZA's lyric content peak of 1997. No MC has a lyric content peak like RZA 97. You cannot find, most MCs don't even know what he was meaning or could put it in a song. You know what I mean? I mean, have you heard Wu-Tang Forever? I mean, that's next level stuff, right? There was a reason he was telling you to pick up the Wu-Tang Forever CD. You don't need summer school. That's all you need, right? Of course, I'm not talking about Nas's whole career, but again, when we talk about lyricism, though, are we talking about the craftiness of the tale? Because then we could the craftiness of how the words are put together and the way they're told. Jizza easily ranks with Nas, okay? And Jizza's best ranks with Nas's best easily. If we talk about content and the complexity of the content, which RZA's was so high, it's beyond anyone's reach. In 1997, no one because of that peak, it led to a lot of complex lyricism as well that even challenges something a lot of other MCs on a technical level too, as far as rhyming, because to say all those things, he had to be very technically gifted. But those few verses, about 5 songs on Gravedigger's second album, take those, including 12 Jewels is there. Take every feature from Wu-Tang Forever, right? And you could sprinkle in just to add some of the features in 97. Add the verse on Diesel. You know what I mean? Things like that. I mean, no. Nas's content, no one's content. I'm not saying Nas. No one's content says all that or has said all that. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's not even fair. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean, Kareem. You know, it's not, we're talking about sitting on, so, you know, come on. Been doing this for like 25 years, daring to write this in print, broadcasters over airwaves, though. You think that, I'd be nervous about it now? Like I wouldn't be able to say it now? I hear you, AZ. I go, yeah, music has to be music for most, you know what I mean? He didn't have the best delivery over songs. You saying about RZA? I think his verse was necessary, but sometimes that can overload a verse. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, yeah. If you listen to RZA, he actually does a lot of things that are very difficult to do. Again, he doesn't enunciate well, so it looked like he wasn't doing the flow right. But sometimes, if you listen closely, he was doing things that were a little bit more challenging than even Ray and Meth or Ghost were trying. Well, maybe not Meth though. As far as like dexterity and flow, Meth was able to do anything. But he certainly did more challenging things. So let's say Jizza, as far as technical acrobatics, the verbal dexterity. It just sounds like it didn't work because he doesn't enunciate well, But to me, that gives it a style, you know what I mean? Because, you know what's funny? People get on RZA because he doesn't enunciate well, because that's the only thing what's messing it up. His breath control is actually there. He's saying everything. He's not stumbling because he's losing breath control. He doesn't enunciate well. And it's funny because most of the regions outside of New York, especially the South, they pronounce everything wrong. So Southern rappers, a lot of them mumble everything. And I'm not talking about mumble rap. I'm talking about regular rhyming. They don't pronounce anything correctly. So, like, who are we to judge, right? Like, angry get back music. I hear you out. Facebook. I think Jizza had great success, though. You know what I mean? I don't think Jizza is crying about the success he did get, though, Phase. Yeah, God, I don't understand that. How could your favorite album from Nas be I Am? An album that was butchered by bootlegging and is filled with more commercial songs. And for the first time, we're hearing pop songs from Nas. Like, I don't know how that could be your favorite. That's intriguing to me, right? Quatis, you said Wisdom Cipher. Yeah, Quatis is saving me because I just bugging out here, Right? When It Was Written came out, that was considered very commercial because everybody that picks it, most people that pick It Was Written over Illmatic are younger people, because they don't realize how many production mistakes are on It Was Written, and so we listen to Nas lyrically, and we can only see people progress better, so we don't want to say, and Nas was exceptional, but the two things that I don't put It Was Written above Illmatic since it just came up. It Was Written was lying about Tupac. Why was he rhyming that? Why did he rhyme that? You know what I mean? That he came out of the hospital. Why did he rhyme Nas's life, Tupac's life there? It soils the record slightly. But Trackmasters, they have no idea how to EQ a record the way the legends Primo, Large Pro, and Pete Rock did. They just don't. So when It Was Written came out, if you couldn't hear the sloppiness of that record, and it didn't bother you, it's because you didn't live through the time to get that. You know what I mean? Or it didn't matter to you because you didn't have the ear for that yet. But if someone argued that Nas rhymed better on It Was Written, I could take that. I could take that argument, and that's more valuable to you. But I don't know. I'm befuddled with that. It'll keep me up at night. Quatis, you said Wisdom Cipher, all being born of wisdom, analyzing my circle based on the accumulation of information, basically being deliberate about how I engage with the world around me. So Wisdom Cipher is basically you judging the way you'll interact with everything. You know what I mean? That's also why Wisdom Cipher, in the alphabet is the truth. You know what I mean? Because the Wisdom Cipher is the truth that you take into the square. So, very good, very good. 793 done after Stray Bullet by Organized, similarly at different perspectives. Yeah, yeah. And again, that's why to me, I also put Pharoah Monch as a GOAT candidate. You know what I mean? He's just too good. And he had a lot of contests before a lot of other people had him. Yeah, Rewind and Gums. I like KRS-One more during BDP era. I could see it, yeah. But KRS-One, to me, his first 3 albums solo are you gotta have in your collection. And the 3rd solo album I got next, that's a technical, very, very technically gifted album. If not like not a great song album from him. I agree, Kareem. Yeah, yeah. That's why I was talking only about 1997. You know, Riz is a personal favorite of mine. And it's because of that 97 peak, you know, and the insights. You know, I was listening a lot of time. You know, how could he not be a favorite when the compared to pretty much any MC who's ever MC'd, you're probably there's a chance you could learn more from RZA than anyone else that rhymes on the mic. You know what I mean? That's why there's so much value to KRS-One and RZA when they rhyme. You know, they could butcher up the whole thing or just not make a good song, but there's a higher probability that you will learn something you never knew before. And they probably have the highest percentage of doing that. And technically, we could talk GOAT stuff though, but pretty much KRS-One did everything. So, you know, whether you go Nas is the GOAT and stuff like there's like a million things that KRS-One could do that Nas can't. So that's why it's always unfair with the pioneers like KRS and Rakim. Quatis, you said the world I design in the world of the industry I work in, of which there is always an aspect of uncertainty. If I were to caption today's degree, I would call it measured action. Insight into oneself and one's action and control of one's emotions. Yeah, definitely. I see that. I see that, Quatis, you know. You know. And the truth is that it as we go along, Quatis, you know, maybe one of the saving graces is that I don't know if there is enough of anything that a man can work consistently, you know what I mean? And get consistent money. So he might as well just go for the daring. Right? I like Machiavelli because how he soldiered up the outlaws and named them after socialist cats from the East. Did he? Are all of them? I don't know if they're all. Some of them are like world figures and stuff. They're not all socialist cats. But yeah, and I agree. The whole album wasn't angry and stuff like that. I like an angry album though. Tupac was great at that. You know, I just thought that Me Against the World was better musically and topically. Yeah, indeed, it is. It is though. It's the hike from Mecca to Savior's Island. Yeah, it's about 2 hours for me. And the thing about it is that if I have to take the bus to the ferry, so to make it 2 hours, I have to be exact on the time of the bus, or else I will miss the ferry. You know what I mean? So I either get there early or I get there late. There's no like in between, you know. But so now I have this gracious benefit here, though. You know what I mean? And hopefully, enough of the students that go to the school, they took wind of what I was when I was sending out the communication. He Kareem said the closest Nas album to that is '96. It was written. Are you serious? I don't know what I'm serious about. I don't know what I'm serious about. I'm I'm not shitting on it was written as a lyrical album. Although the only lyric I don't really care for is him repeating Nas's got shot and got out of the hospital. I thought that was a little bit, studio of him. And really following trends. A lot of people were honoring the enemies, the East Coast, by throwing darts at Tupac. You know what I mean? In some kind of way. You know what I mean? and musically it was written is a much sloppier album than Illmatic, you know, and that was to be expected, but still, you know what I mean? But if you argued that, again, I said, if you argue that it was written is his most lyrical ever or more lyrical than Illmatic, I'm not above that argument. I think that's a good argument. You know what I mean? Impossible verse by RZA, You God, Slept On, Hold That Album Very Hard. Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the way I'm talking here, you can tell that Will Forever is my favorite album. Not the best album. I don't think it's the best album, but it's my favorite. Agree, come on. His substance is necessary. Hey, Samurai Showdown is a great track. It's great stuff. That My Son and Traded Truth album is a goodie. I didn't even know that they made an album. You know what benefits people like RZA though, and which is interesting, right? A lot of if a producer doesn't have a great flow, he can produce tracks that that go with that, you know. And he's pretty, for the most part, he salvages the flaws in his delivery. And again, it's really not his delivery. You know, he has all the breath control, but when you enunciate certain words incorrectly, it seems like you're not keeping the rhyme, you know. But if you take that out of your head, he actually is doing a lot of complex verbal techniques, you know. Offline would love to hear your thorough review of Where You Were Then, Now, and 2 albums from that era. Cocoa Brothers second, and Equinox the third and last. Yeah, you know, with the work I do, I don't have time. I don't always have the time in my forums to talk about like classic works. You know, obviously I did the interviews with Tech and Steel, so I got to talk to them about their works, you know, but briefly, Cocoa Brothers' second album, or the only Cocoa Brothers album, Rude Awakening, in '98. The year says it all. 1998 was such a great year for hip hop music that it just got overshadowed. You know what I mean? So, and because it wasn't as good as the first, it couldn't match up with not only that first record, but also that time era. But in the context of their discography, it's a really, really great add-on. Like, a lot of people don't listen to all these artists like all together, like all their works together and shuffle them, and then appreciate how many great works they have. You know what I mean? And these, when we say an album sucks, or you know, we're talking about a period of time. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's good to appreciate an artist as a whole body of collective. Like for Nas, he's best appreciated that way to me. Organizer's third album is probably one of the greatest albums and most underrated albums. 97 was not a loaded year in music, and that was easily a top 3 record. Wu-Tang Forever, Commons, One Day It All Makes Sense, Company Flow, Funk Crusher Plus, Organized Equinox. Those are like, it's top 5 album. You know what I mean? What else was there? I think that was Capone and Noriega too, right? The War Report. That was 97 as well, right? If I had to do a top 5 off the head, you know, those are, I don't know if that's my top, like maybe I'm missing an incredible record, but if you were collecting though, those are 3 pretty much near classics or classics that you would need, right? Who Forever, Funk Crusher Plus, War Report, One Day It All Makes Sense by Common. I mean, those are great, great records. You know what I mean? And then Equinox absolutely is on par with those easily. Yeah, I'm always going to lose that convo with gods. Well, the argue is not to argue with me whether I Am is a great album, is a better album than what I think. But the real quality of the build here is if you could detail why you like that album the best, like what was in it musically and also lyrically, because then you have to justify, like, the truth is that you have to admit that I cared for that Nas was able to make songs that had pop hooks because they don't exist in the other albums like that. You know what I mean? Right? Right. So probably it's hard for me to get into boom bap being from CLA. I love CLA. Tell me where that is though. That's, you know, are you talking about Canada? I always get these things confused. I love when Nas was rapping at different type beats, you know. Yeah, yeah, you know, and of course we're listening. I'm judging on the quality, and the quality is lesser. You know what I mean? But obviously we've gotten used to that with Nas's career. Different types of music, but he's not able to get production that has different types of music at a high quality. That's difficult for a lot of people because a lot of there are great MCs that need different type of sounds, but it's very difficult to get those different type of sounds at their best. Each one of those type of styles at their best. You know, Razzcast is a good example too. Yeah, G-Rap is a GOAT candidate to me too. You know, he's too gifted. That's crazy. I have never heard that before. I've never heard somebody say that Nas's "My Country" from Stillmatic is a hard beat. You know, that literally is that you. Yeah, you gotta tell me where you're from. Where are you from, Asiatic? Oh, you're from California. That's crazy because you have a down south here. Because down south brothers, they'll listen to an R&B track like a music that is for Keisha Cole, and that shit sounds hardcore to them. You know what I mean? It's so, I find it funny though. You know what I mean? You know, they'll hear a CNC Music Factory cut, and that shit probably sounds like Onyx. You know what I mean? You guys just have a you know, I don't want to be funny though, but it's like a softer ear. You know what I mean? Your ear is soft. You got to get with that hard shit. What's the matter with you all? You know? How was my country? Da, 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 da. How was that hard though? Yeah, I couldn't see punching anybody with that song on though. I'd probably give him some flowers or some shit. You know what I mean? That's a hold hands and sing about how, you know, that's a sing along blues right there he made. But and that's true. Come on, the songs Leak Frying were better. Yeah. Dre did one song and it was written, and it wasn't all that. It was good. It wasn't great. Let Me Talk to You. I'm sure that's an R&B song. I'm sure that Nas's "Let Me Talk to You" is an R&B song because when somebody says "Let me talk to you," it's always to a girl, you know. So yeah, you know, it's a girly song. Oh no, this is "I Want to Talk to the Mayor." Yeah, I thought that chorus was very droning. You know what I mean? And I'm saying personally, I thought it was a little bit didactic. You know, right? Like Schoolhouse Rockish. You know what I mean? Like if it was a little bit corny. You know. That's just me though. You know? Yeah, Killer Priest, Heavy Mental. Yeah, definitely. Come on, yeah, now, come on. I would disagree. I think It Was Written was a. I mean, it's a classic. How is it not a good follow up? For all of its mistakes, it still ends up being classic. Again, some music is more than the sum of its parts. You know, just like some literature is this more than the sum of its parts. A lot of classic novels, for example, have very bad parts in it. You know what I mean? Or very droning parts. You know, or extended. You know. Right, so that doesn't mean it's not classic. I agree, Kamal, but I that's why I like I Got Next because I felt like he just showed techniques. It was fun to listen to. Right? You saw a vid thumbnail from a few back where Chris Kara said he admits he was wrong in some of his teaching, like some young men have done throughout time. Sure, and the same with me. He said that to me too. You know what I mean? And he even when we talked about Build to Destroy, you know, but that's the daring of being an artist and sharing your work, sharing your thoughts, sharing your ideas to the people. That's the daring, you know what I mean? Look, I corrected you all on the word lose. Key Kareem, and you're spelling it wrong. Lose. Okay? Lose, right? He never loses lyrical ability. No, I think he still has it. Sometimes he sounds a little bit outdated, but definitely hasn't lost ability. The early 2000s, I document the 2000s as the dark ages, Kamal. So yeah, absolutely, that would be something that helped ruin hip hop, right? Romantic rap, whatever that is, right? 792, a young lady schooled me. Oh, peace, Earth. I see Jewel. Peace, Jewel. A young 793, you said a young lady schooled me on how many different transits she had to travel from outer saviors to see truth, especially carrying hands full of ish. It's good to know. Does my son call himself that because I have no idea. I agree, Key Kareem. I agree. I agree with everything you said about Illmatic, and it was written Stillmatic. You know, I also find the album that Nas did with Damian Marley to be classic, though. You know, it's unique. I don't think people will be able to make it. It may not be classic. It's primarily classic because of Damian Marley, but it's still classic. You know, it's a great album. But every Nas album gives you at least 5 classic songs, incredible songs, and after a long career, that's incredible to me. That's incredible. You know, one of the pioneers of Hispanic, I hate that word. So-called Hispanic Latino brothers that pioneered battle rap was Pumpkinhead. You know what I mean? A good brother I knew, and he returned to the essence. They named a street in Park Slope after him, Robert Diaz Wade. Pumpkinhead, aka PH. He's seminal in that. You know, I never documented it because I never cared for battle rap. You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean I didn't do the knowledge to that. The main facets of that. Also, you got Nems, who I think is great, but he's also a songwriter, so you know. Mixtape driven era competing with the oncoming slump of DBL albums. Now, of course, I'm using term. Of course, yeah. I just hate the word Hispanic. I've always hated it. Right. Mm-hmm. I don't know how One Day It'll All Make Sense was disappointing. Though. It's an incredibly good album. You should go revisit that. Jewel, am I enjoying teaching on this forum? The problem, Jewel, is that I don't really judge where I'm teaching or teaching itself like an enjoyment. You know what I'm saying? I try to not, I don't when I analyze whether I did well or what I did well after every class in the classroom or in this forum here, and now what has become in the classroom at Allah School of Mecca and this forum, I don't judge them and say, did I have fun or did I enjoy it? And it's my way of letting go. You know what I'm saying? Because what I learned from Firstborn Prince, though, is that you have to be able to let go. So that means that if I did well or if I didn't, I couldn't continue to do this, though, if I took on that weight of having to make sure everybody learned. Now, that is more difficult than said. The truth is that throughout my life, though, because of teaching every Thursday at a law school and the stressors of upholding the school, manning it, I taught for many years when nobody was there. So teaching during these COVID times where like people aren't coming back quickly and things like that is really nothing to me, or not uncommon feeling. I have spent many a Friday morning into late afternoon with headaches because of the intensity and the work that goes into teaching this knowledge in that forum. It's a heavy responsibility, you know. I cherish it, I appreciate it, but never really on a Thursday. You know what I mean? And I don't really look at it like in on that enjoyment level. You know what I mean? I look at it more as like the effective level. You know what I'm saying? Um, because if I judge things on enjoyment, then I would have to put emphasis on whether the particular students are easy or hard to teach. And sometimes that's not a good measure of a teacher's worth, because some students are easy to teach and some are harder to teach. You know what I mean? Right. So I don't know if I answered the question, but I don't really judge the I don't judge all this whether I enjoy it or not. I'm gonna do it anyway. You know what I mean? Because most of the time, some of my best classes are when I don't even feel like going at all. You know, like where I need to make sure I have some new polo to even get out the door. Yeah. Quatis, you said on the music tip, old question. What do you think of artists boycotting Grammys because not receiving nominations? Is it just a crybaby moment, or do they have credence for that type of reaction? If they make shitty music, I think they should boycott all they can. You know what I mean? If they make bad music, if they make crossover music and they didn't win a Grammy, I think they should boycott. Absolutely. You know what I mean? They are working to get into that field, and they have danced and they have cooned, and damn it, they deserve the opportunity to reap the rewards of that coonery, and they should fight that struggle. But if you make good music, though, I think it's hypocritical. You know? I thought I just sang My Country. My country, shit it on me. They just take my liberty. It's terrible. The chorus is terrible. Right? Yeah, it's weird. Quanti's fun fact: philosophy literally means the love of wisdom. Yes, it does. Yeah, philo. Yeah. Love, and Sophia means wisdom. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, gonna make you sweat. Come on, CNC Factory gonna make you sweat. You know. Again, it's all about the palette, though. I'll tell you one thing, right? And this is what plagues hip hop that doesn't plague other genres, though. Okay. If I was to say, and this is pretty much right, that the music of the jazz of the 50s into the 60s is the most high quality, most complex jazz, right? The modal jazz and the hard bop into all of the avant-garde stuff that Coltrane was doing, that is the most complex jazz, and that is the best type of jazz, the highest level, and you have to develop your ear for that because it's better music. Most people accept that. And then they will, and then you come to admit that I do like funk jazz, I do like other stuff. It's more easier and basic, and I enjoy all of it, right? But that's the best. Whereas when people with hip hop, if we say that about New York, which is the root, the foundation, it is clearly more complex and has reached higher peaks, though, because it is the foundation, it is the home, it is the place. They'd rather say I like this type of music from where I'm from, even though it is a lesser sound. So they're not traveling to adapt to the sound. You know what I'm saying? It's an intriguing phenomenon. And that's only because the way they sold it to you, you know what I mean? Where people think that wherever hip hop is made, it belongs to that area. That isn't true of music. That's not really how music works, though, as far as music and the history that is made in music. You don't get to make a new history and say that a lesser sound, a more basic, easier sound is a higher quality sound. You know what I mean? You have to admit, like, hey, I like this disco level version as opposed to this more complex version. You know what I mean? But everybody takes their coast and their area as personal offense. So it's hard to do that. You know what I mean? But it only happens with hip hop. It doesn't happen with other things. You know what I mean? If you made some salsa music from Texas, you know what I mean? And it doesn't uphold the standard, you're not going to say, like, well, this is the Texas shit and our shit is hotter anyway. Can't do it. It's a horrible thing I'm saying. It is a horrible thing I'm saying. 793, you said the firm shit with threats of doing a whole album until Stout and his politics kicked in. Yeah, I'm not really crying about not having a firm album. I'm sure that Foxy Brown would have ruined it anyway. You said Junior Gong album was a very special album during those darker times in this music. It really was a breath of fresh air, that album. PH Team Hami, that's right. Curious George is still very much alive though, right? On the collective I'm part of, the Leftovers, he's on our album. And Curious George, who was my first interview ever, he's actually Puerto Rican Cuban. Okay. Jewel, new polo, I appreciate you. That's peace. I appreciate you too, Jewel. Just trying to give an honest answer. You know what I mean? Sometimes the things that we engage in are very difficult. You know what I mean? So with certain things I do, I have a lot of my discipline is based on the idea of proving something is useful and then putting horse blinders on to the like and dislike that arises from it. You know what I mean? It has served me well. Buck danced up a whole cloud of... All right. Come on, you said artists can be kind of hypocritical when it comes to Grammys because they say they don't care about Grammys and it being authentic for culture, but they'll dance when they win. Some of that too is because they're in a hypocritical space, you know what I mean? And also because the Grammys tend to they're doing it with hip hop now, but they've been doing it with R&B for the last 10 years, where the singles are trash R&B. You know, Beyonce cuts, Get Naked, here you go, right? Shake Everything that you bought, right? And put on your body. But the actual albums will be high quality, where you'll see the Young Baby Roses, you'll see her, you'll see Ladisi, you know, the contemporary, you know. So, they're doing that with the rap now. So what happens is that some of these MCs, they realize, and remember, you're trying to make a career out of this, so it's always contradictions. They're like, listen, this shit was good enough to get nominated, so it should get a win. So, and if it gets a win, they have a great possibility of securing a lot of money for themselves. You know what I mean? And that's the thing about hip hop that is so, like, for example, right? I wear a lot of polo, but my wardrobe doesn't cost that much though. It probably costs less than most of the people's wardrobe, because I know how to shop. I've been around so many low lives and polo low heads that I just know how to get stuff cheaper. You know what I mean? And I don't even use boosters. You know what I mean? The thing about it is that there is such an obsessive facade, and a lot of that has to do with the listener. You know what I mean? Back in the 90s, you could see an artist like Fat Joe or something like that wear the same leather in a couple of videos, But if we saw that today, though, it'd be made fun of. You know what I mean? And even when I do work, I feel this thing. I'm like, wait a minute, I wore that shirt for a show before, So I'm like, I really feel like wearing this shirt again. I like it. I wore it for like 1 hour to record this show, and I've only worn it for 4 hours, and now I have to like replace it or ditch it. This visual obsession amplified by Instagram and social media and stuff, that hypocrisy is supported a lot by the listener themselves. And so sometimes the artist themselves is going to have to, bite the bullet and try to get some type of award or something, or fight for it if he's in the running for it, now that they put quality in there, and try to get the money that comes with the award, because we all know that when you get a Grammy, your sales go up, right? Yeah, I agree. I LT Station, I do think Butterfly had the best award speech I ever heard. I loved it. I didn't even have knowledge of self then, and it impacted me, And that Blowout Comb, I love that album. It's incredible. It's definitely on YouTube, LT. Yeah. Everyone in the early '90s created their own interpretation in New York and later Cali. I agree. I agree. And some of it was more creative than others, and you had to be original, and that's peace. You know what I mean? You know. But in some of the incarnations, though, they do have failure points. Most '90s West Coast rap was working to be original, but in it they were failing on a lot of musical levels, like weak samples, generic sampling, uh, bad, bad or non-existent chopping, um, weak drums. You know, so where like the weakness of the drum became the signature. You know, hand clap snares, right? Right. Keep hip hop pure. You know, like I said, it's easier said than done when you make records for people that they'll love it, but they don't always buy it. They often don't buy it, and there's very few ways they can support. And that Grammy win, let's say for Gibbs or somebody like that, could really catapult it. And I'm not saying Gibbs was crying about not getting it; he wasn't, you know. But I was giving an example, you know. Phase 114, I buy sweaters in the summer and t-shirts in the winter. That's how you save money on clothes. That isn't, yeah, that's especially if you buy polo. That's a great strategy.